UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for the next 3 full throttle hours of fast-breaking news, challenging views and top-quality topical debate. You know the drill. Get it off your chest, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and as long as it's family friendly, I guarantee I'll play your message out. No swearing, please. We get a load of messages that are very funny, but you know, as I say, this is a family show. Well, vaguely anyway. You know what I'm saying. It's Wednesday, February the 12th. Here's what's coming up. Roll up, roll up. The big show's coming to town, but get your ticket orders in fast for the next 72 hours. They're going for half price. Exciting. Unless, that is, hate preachers are not to your taste. After being banned from all 29 European countries in the Schengen area, Islamic radical Mohammed Hoblos is heading to Britain for a 5-city tour called Together as One. Billed as preparation for Ramadan, the Muslim shows all feature 5 other extremist preachers as well. Lebanese by birth, Hoblos lives in Australia and is so obsessed by prayer that he insists that a person who rapes babies on a daily basis but prays is better in the eyes of Allah than someone who lives a blameless life but does not pray. Well, okay then. Ranting Hoblos also orders his followers never to condemn Hamas. He is regarded as a dangerous extremist. His 2 attempts to sneak into Europe via Switzerland and Oslo both failed. And refused entry to Germany and the Netherlands, he was forced to cancel recent shows in Berlin and Utrecht. Why then is this lunatic rabble-rouser, this shouty purveyor of religious hatred, at this point still on the cusp of being allowed into Britain to spew his vile bile? What do you reckon? 0344 499 1000. More of that later. In other news, another idiot judge has struck a blow for insanity by ruling that all Palestinians can now settle in Britain in the same way that Ukrainians do. That's 2 million Gazans potentially heading our way with the door wide open. Whose deranged decision is this latest crime against Britain? Some balmy beak called Hugo Norton Taylor. What else? 0344 499 1000. Something needs to be done about these immigration judges. You know, the half-wits who let foreign rapists and paedophiles stay in the UK because of their alleged human rights. What should happen, do you think, to these learned fools? 0344 499 1000. And now for today's postcard from the edge of utter madness. Labour's top choice and favourite for the important role of Independent Inspector of Borders plans to work from home. Well, you know, that's the way it goes. The trouble is, his home is in Finland. Youthful up-and-comer John Tuckett, 73, is the government's preferred candidate for the £130,000 a year role. As the UK's borders watchdog, Mr Tuckett envisages a 60-40 split between being available for, and I quote, visible appointments, whatever that means, and periods, this is actually what he says, and periods of quiet reflection and writing. Here's an idea. Dump this Finland-based old geezer and get a better candidate. 0344 499 1000. Plus, tonight, a government-funded report calls for empathy for kids who identify as animals and crawl around on all fours. Many of them call themselves furries, as opposed to calling for the men in white coats. But when the new health minister has nothing but deep respect for idiots who identify as llamas, what do you expect? 03444991000. Also tonight, the murder mystery that has shocked France. What happened to a British couple, Andrew Searle, 65, and his 56-year-old wife, Dawn, found dead in horrific circumstances at their home in the remote village of Pesquy, north of Toulouse. Her lying outside in her pyjamas, head beaten in, surrounded by her jewellery. Him inside, hanging with a gag in his mouth. What on earth happened to this couple? 03444991000. And back in Britain, the scandal of the councillors presiding over the bankruptcy of Birmingham, who, while ruthlessly slashing services to save £300 million and rocketing council tax by 17.5%, have just awarded themselves a fat pay rise. Tone deaf does not even begin to cover it. 03444991000. Also, I've got the latest on that airhead oath Prince Andrew's money-grabbing antics, which could well pose a threat to Britain's national security. And finally, Elon Musk's incredible bonfire of the American government's excesses and the big question: how come so many executives working at the United States' foreign aid department, USAID, who earn at most a few $100,000 a year, live in multi-million-dollar houses and have accrued multi-million-dollar fortunes? How come is that? Any thoughts? 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday night together. And that brilliant story, that worrying story about the Muslim hate preacher who's heading for Britain for a 5-city tour of appearances from Birmingham to London to Glasgow, all around the country. Starts in 1 week's time on February the 19th. As things stand right now, although he's been banned from all 29 European countries in the Schengen area, recently absolutely stopped from entering Germany and Holland, where he had 2 shows lined up. 800 tickets sold in Berlin, by the way. He had to cancel that. But as things stand right now, he can still come to Britain. He's still booked all of these venues. We have a problem with these hate preachers. I'll bring you some historical detail that in just a little while. But the person, the brilliant journalist who's brought this excellent story to me is, of course, none other than the great Isabel Oakeshott, international editor, who's in the studio now. Thank you for the story and thank you for being here.
I mean, it's so worrying, isn't it? This guy, I mean, he's really extreme.
He's bad.
You know, let me just reiterate.
We're going to play some...
Because we sort of touched on it in the intro, didn't we? But this is a guy who declared that a Muslim who intentionally misses a single daily prayer is worse than a murderer, worse than a rapist, worse than a terrorist, worse than a paedophile in the eyes of Allah. So to turn that around, and we did play a little bit of it earlier, basically this guy's saying, you know, you can be a paedophile, you can be a rapist, you can be a terrorist, as long as you pray every day, you know, nothing to see here, move on. And everybody else in our neck of the woods seems to think this guy is a tremendously bad influence and shouldn't be allowed anywhere near their country. But Britain, well, you know, we like our free speech, of course, not if you're a far-right thug, but if you're an absolute nutter Islamic extremist, well, come on in.
Exactly.
Now, there's one brave Labour MP has been complaining about this because this complete lunatic...
Who is this Labour MP?
So the Labour MP is a guy called Luke Dyer. Luke Meyer. Luke Meyer. Who?
That's the rest of the party, Dyer. Luke, you're going to get chucked out of the Labour Party with this kind of rhetoric, but go on, good for him.
So he's a Middlesbrough South MP and has complained to the government saying, look, I don't want this guy anywhere near my patch, quite rightly so. And what I thought was particularly interesting was the way that Security Minister Dan Jarvis responded to this complaint.
Go on.
He said, the UK has a range of disruptive immigration measures at our disposal to refuse entry and cancel permission if anyone is assessed as a foreign, if it is assessed that a foreign national's presence in the UK is not conducive to the public good. Really? That's news to me, because every single day people come in who are not conducive to the public good, and I've not seen the government deploying its range of disruptive immigration measures, whatever absolute twaddle that is supposed to mean. The minister went on to say that he was limited in what he could disclose in this case, but the Home Office, reassuringly, will look carefully at the case. That's nice of them, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been in touch personally with the Home Office today. And earlier this afternoon they said, we're looking into it and we'll get back to you, we'll send you an email. They said, when are you on air? I said 7 p.m. You won't be surprised to hear I didn't receive an email, but we got back in touch with them about an hour ago, and they said that basically this guy was in a holding pattern. Now
sounds like what happens to me over Heathrow. Yeah.
To be fair, perhaps they'll come to their senses by tomorrow, and like the rest of Europe, in fact pretty much the rest of the world, ban this lunatic. But when you said this guy, right, if you want to know what a lunatic he is, and we have a hate preacher problem in this country around the mosques. We did a special on it about a year ago on talkTV, where several police forces were supposed to be investigating these guys who routinely call for the death of all Jews, the annihilation of Israel.
Refuse to condemn Hamas.
Yeah, and so on and so forth. And by the way, this guy's big shtick is never condemn Hamas.
Whatever they do.
Yeah, but anyway, let's just have what Isabel said earlier, and I said in my monologue. This guy actually tells his followers, angrily and rantily. I mean, I suppose I can talk, but you know what I mean. Angrily and rantily tells his followers that if you rape babies, if you rape a baby on a daily basis, but you pray, in the eyes of Allah, you are a better person than someone who lives an absolutely blameless life, doesn't do anything wrong, but never prays. And here is our friend Mohammed Hoblos saying just that. Listen to this.
Adultery, zina. What about the one who rapes a child? What about the one who drinks alcohol? What about the one who does the biggest of the kabair, good or bad? This person, one person that commits all of these sins, he commits all of these sins on a daily basis, but he prays, is better in the eyes of Allah than the one that doesn't commit any of these sins but doesn't pray.
Sorry, Mohammed, I didn't quite catch that. Could you speak up a bit? But what a lunatic. This guy, he's Lebanese by birth. And when I heard that video earlier that you sent me, I thought, hang on, I can hear something slightly Australian here. And indeed, he lives in Sydney. So good luck with Sydney and Australia having him as a resident. Again, we've got to cut the Home Office some slack. I mean, they may still come to their senses, but even in Europe, you know what they're like there. Every country's a blanket ban. This man cannot come here. He's a dangerous extremist, and that's what he is. He is a dangerous rabble-rouser who will use his rhetoric to whip his followers up if he comes to these venues. 5 cities. Starts in 1 week's time on February the 19th. The tour finishes, I think, in Glasgow. Starts in London, finishes in Glasgow. I'm not going to give you the venues. I'm not here to promote this tour. Finishes on the 23rd of February. And as things stand, it's still happening. I'd like to know how he's able to even book these venues.
I just don't get it at all. I mean, you ask a really important question there. How on earth is he able to book these venues? It's quite hard sometimes for political parties to book venues. Never mind some absolute loony like this. I just want to highlight something that he said about women, his attitude to women. It is better for you to have an iron nail driven in the back of your skull and through your brain than to touch a foreign woman. I mean, look, this government goes on and on about not wanting things that divide us, and none of us want things that divide us. And here we have somebody who outright preaches a total gospel of them and us. You're either an extreme Islamic nutter like he is and follow all his preachings, or you're the rest of us foreigners, I suppose I would be in his eyes. How does that in any way help Britain's totally disastrous multicultural experiment? It doesn't. What we're trying to do at the moment is not to have these sorts of divisive preachers and, depend whatever side of politics you're on. Can you imagine if there was some kind of right-wing white British nutter, the equivalent of this? No way would they be allowed to be going around preaching extreme stuff. So why is special provision being made for this crazy guy?
Yeah, I'm looking for two outcomes here. One is a statement fairly soon from the Home Office that no, this man will not be allowed in to conduct his dubious tour. And two, I want a condemnation from the government.
Yeah.
We need a condemnation.
Completely.
The fact of the matter is, and again, it's not the time to accuse the government of sucking up to the Muslim community on this issue yet. But my guess is, they may be provoked by what I'm saying now, but my guess is that even if they ban him, they'll do it quietly. There'll be no condemnation because Labour need the Muslim vote.
But the thing is, this is so denigrating to mainstream Muslims. It does not represent mainstream Islamic teaching. The vast majority of Muslims, either here in this country or across the world, do not have these crazy, horrible, extreme views. They wouldn't recognise the kind of rhetoric that is being issued here. So it is not good for our communities and for our Muslim community here in the UK to have somebody like that given a platform. Now, you and I are seriously in favour of free speech in general, but we also recognise that it has limits. And here is where I think you draw the line. Yeah,
you can't be calling for people to have nails driven into their heads and saying that people who rape babies are great guys. And by the way, it's actually illegal. If you mention Hamas, it's illegal not to condemn them because they're a proscribed organisation. They're illegal. So this guy is probably breaking the law. Now, about a year or so ago, when we were on still doing talkTV, when I was doing crosstalk with Alex Phillips, the great Alex Phillips, we did an investigation. I can't take too much credit myself, but I presented a brilliant investigation by talkTV. Now, this established that 3 police forces around the country were investigating suspected hate speech by preachers at mosques. Now, at a Islamic centre in Ilford, we have one speaker, this is all recorded, one speaker praying with his congregation in Arabic to, quote, curse the Jews and the children of Israel. The speaker goes on, "O Allah, curse the Jews and the children of Israel, curse the infidels, break their words, shake their feet, disperse and tear apart their community and ruin their houses and destroy their homes." This was after October the 7th.
Wonderful.
And as I say, this was representative of the sort of claptrap that was being preached at mosques all over the country. And we never did find out the results of these investigations, but
I strongly
often nothing happens.
I'm
usually
afraid to say that I think this is probably, there are pockets of this right across the UK.
Exactly.
And we seem to have a permissive attitude to it. We likely don't have nearly enough Arabists who can go in to these hotbeds of extremism and actually understand what's being said and report it back and have it rooted out. Yeah,
it's a very good point that you made, Isabel, and I want to ask the audience, give me a call of what you think about this, that at this stage, this guy, this preacher of hate, this spewer of bile, this vile bile, it really is, people who rape babies on a daily basis are pretty good people as long as they pray. Give me a break. I mean, if Allah really does rate that kind of person as better than someone who doesn't rape babies but doesn't pray, then Allah really needs to recalibrate his value system, I would suggest. But I don't believe Allah does believe that. And I'd love to hear from all of you about what you think about this, but I'd be particularly interested because Isabel makes a good point. I think this is when we focus on people like this, it's so sort of almost unfair to the vast majority of Muslims who were decent people, and this doesn't reflect on them. It's not fair that this does reflect on them.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear from any Muslims out there what they feel about these kind of people, these hate preachers, and the fact that as things stand, Mohammed Hoblos is still going to be allowed in the country to conduct his 5-city tour. It's supposed to be in preparation for Ramadan, and it's called Together as One.
I think I might get a ticket and just see what goes.
As I said earlier, for 72 hours, the tickets are going for half price. I'm not sure how much they are, but don't buy a ticket yet, because maybe, just maybe, the Home Office will come to its senses and ban this guy. It bloody well better. That's all I would say. Next up, we're going to talk about this extraordinary ruling by another one of these morons, these immigration tribunal judges who are becoming the scourge of this country, who has ruled that every single Palestinian, there's nearly 2 million of them in Gaza, can now come and claim asylum in this country. They can become refugees, and they will be allowed in as things stand, because they're going to come in on the same system as Ukrainians. So as things stand, as of today, literally, if a Palestinian says, I want to come and live in Britain, we have to say yes, thanks to a judge called, you won't be surprised to hear, Hugo Norton-Taylor. Well, Mr. Norton-Taylor, you are a moron, okay? We'll discuss that next.
Even the Labour Party still has problems with their individual members, where, you know, Andrew Gwynn, the health minister, has been suspended from the party for making, amongst other things, anti-Semitic texts and messages on his WhatsApps, and you just think, what's wrong with you?
Well, I'm pleased that the action has been taken very swiftly, and I have to say that I feel that Keir Starmer kept to his word when he said he wanted to root out anti-Semitism in the party, and I sat on the anti-Semitism advisory board.
Across the UK on DAB+. On your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm getting a lot of messages about the hate preacher, Mohammed Hoblos, who, as things stand, I should, in fairness, once again, I've got to stress this about the Home Office. As of 6 p.m. when we last contacted them, they confirmed to us they are still in the process of assessing Mohammed Hoblos's case. He is in what they call the clearing process and have not yet reached a decision regarding his entry into the UK. So I can tell them what their decision must be. He's got to be banned, okay? If he's not, all hell's going to break loose. And as I said to Isabel earlier, also, I want a condemnation from the government. If we don't get a condemnation from this government, what was that MP called, Luke Meyer? You know, he's obviously a decent Labour MP, and I think his feelings that this guy should not be allowed into this country should be reflected by the Labour Party generally, and especially the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. So a statement, I think, would be in order. If we don't get one, make of that what you will. And someone... We've got a text here. I don't know about this, but this is interesting. This is from Stuart. I don't know the veracity of it, but he says, regarding this hate preacher, the really scary thing is, and obviously Stuart knows something about it, is that he's already sold so many tickets in Britain.
Wow.
Now, by the way, his Berlin concert, I was going to say, his Berlin gig. Yeah, hey, we're the hate preachers. Yeah, that'd be a good name for a group, wouldn't it? Hey, we're the hate preachers. People say we're hate preaching around. Oh, that's the Monkeys, isn't it? No.
It's not going to be all you need is love from them, is it?
Yeah, all you need is hate. So in Berlin, he'd sold 800 tickets before he was banned.
Before he got ditched.
And he, by the way, spent the last few weeks trying to sneak in.
And by the way, this guy is not a stupid guy. I mean,
I'm not saying he is.
No, but one thing that surprised me, really surprised me, is that he actually has a PhD in computer science from Princeton. I kid you not. This guy, you know, he could actually be doing something really, really amazing. But no, he's going around the world spreading his horrible message of division. I
don't want to in any way impugn or sort of talk down his genuine piety, but I would suggest he's probably found a way to make a lot more money than computer sciences. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
There's a lot of money in this old crap. Let's talk about Hugo Norton-Taylor. He made a decision yesterday that it's more than effectively, it's a fact that because a guy applied to come and join his family here in Britain from Palestine using the Ukrainian refugee system.
Brilliant.
Because this judge decided, yes, that's fair enough. It literally has raised the drawbridge, opened the gates, opened the door to potentially 2 million Palestinians from Gaza being allowed into Britain. As things stand right now, we have no way we can deny entry to any Palestinian from Gaza who wants to come and live here, thanks to Mr. Norton-Taylor. Mr. Norton-Taylor's decision has to be stopped and it has to be plugged soon, doesn't it?
I mean, I'm a bit worried that you or we are even broadcasting this completely insane decision, because I do fear that if Palestinians hear about this, they will absolutely hot-foot it over here. Now, I don't quite understand why, if they're fleeing, it goes back to that whole thing. You know, it's pretty hard to get directly from Palestine to the UK without going into some rather safer zones first. I don't think there's too many direct flights at the moment from Gaza to London City Airport. That should immediately undermine their claim for asylum. Supposed to seek it in the first safe country. Are they not? And I do fear that if they hear about this, we will be absolutely inundated by people, and I'm sure some of them will be very nice people, and I'm afraid some of them will not. But the reality is, whether they're nice or not, Britain is full We cannot keep accepting, you know, the careworn and the troubled and the oppressed and the persecuted and the opportunist and the economic migrants and so on from all over the planet. We are an island. We are not huge. We have an economy that is flatlining at the moment at best. We cannot absorb any more people.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And what Hugo Norton-Taylor and his ilk, because we're talking about these judges, these two-bit judges who sit on immigration tribunals, who in the past few weeks alone have allowed a fair few paedophiles to stay, jailed paedophiles, because they've got a right to a family life. An Albanian crook who did 2 years in jail. He was found with 250 grand cash, couldn't account for it.
Nice.
Gee, wonder where he got that from. Anyway, he did 2 years.
Don't we all have that?
Yeah,
you know,
of course. Yeah, hang on a second. And this guy came out of jail. Priti Patel said deport him right away, and he has been allowed to stay because his son doesn't like foreign chicken nuggets. Also, a Caribbean woman from Grenada. Is it Grenada or is it Grenada?
I think it's Grenada.
Let's call the whole thing off. I made that joke last night. I still don't know how to pronounce Grenada. Anyway, she's from Grenada. She married, let's see, flitting between the two pronunciations.
Hedging there.
Hedging my bets. Her deportation has been, because she overstayed her visa, has been postponed and delayed because she's explained to the tribunal that her husband, who's from Latvia, A, doesn't like Caribbean food, and B, would find the temperatures in the Caribbean too hot. And therefore the judge goes, well, OK, we better hold fire here. Come on. These judges are becoming a national problem. And the way I see it, they go, our hands are tied. It's the European Convention on Human Rights. That's why the Palestinians are being allowed in, apparently. They say, our hands are tied. No, their hands are not tied. This is purely interpretive. It is their job to interpret the law, to interpret what the ECHR is all about. And they interpret it against Britain every time.
Well, if the law were that clear, then you wouldn't need a judge, would you? I mean, it would have been resolved way further down the line.
Exactly.
These judges, I think, are becoming an increasing problem for Britain. Time and again, they appear to act in a way that is very obviously against the British national interest. And they are way out of step also with public opinion. Now, I know that it's not the judge's job to echo public opinion. And I know that people will be all shrieking, the lefties will be shrieking, yeah, well, they just have to, you know, apply the law, that's their job. But it is not their job to consistently interpret the law in a way that is actually bad for Britain. And if they continue doing this, then either there's a problem with the judges as people, which there may well be. And I mean, in America, they have a very different system of judges.
Vote these people in,
don't they? I mean, they have political appointees for judges because that recognises that there is scope within the law to interpret law in a certain way or not. So either there's a problem with the actual judges and we have to look at how they're appointed, A, or B, there's a problem with the law, and we know there's a problem with the ECHR and we should be having nothing to do with it.
One of the problems with our judicial system generally, there is no mechanism by which judges can be reprimanded, punished, sacked. Once they make a terrible decision, nobody can say anything to them. So these people, the way I see it, these are people from fashionable left-wing Guardian reading circles who see their job as to oppose, to wage war on repressive, racist, imperial, colonialist Britain. Because, as I said, they're morons. They're teenagers trapped in adult bodies. And that is our problem. What do you think? What should we do about these judges? And keep the suggestions clean, eh? But seriously, we should have a mechanism, should we not, to punish these judges, to pull them up, to reprimand them, sack them, something. because right now there's no comeback on these people who are making idiot decisions that endanger this country. When they say a paedophile can stay because he's got a right to a family life and he's got 2 kids, what about the safety of the other kids in the area? In fact, what about the safety of his own kids? These are decisions that endanger the British population, and it cannot continue. 03444991000. Well, the insanity continues. More of that when we come back. You won't believe the next story.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just before we get to the next story, I forgot to say to you, Isabel, and we're still with Isabella Oakeshott, of course, as the nation rose up in horror about this Gaza decision, 2 million Palestinians currently allowed to come here, just like that. They can just turn up and we have to let them in. We've got to change that decision, right? Right now, it just doesn't bear thinking about. As so many sensible people said, hang on, this is crazy. Another one of these mad Labour MPs, this one is Stella Creasy.
Oh, God.
Is she dame? Is she a dame or not?
No, I don't think so.
Well,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Pantomime dame. Anyway, she stood up and said, oh, this isn't repressive. You've got to let people in. I mean, these kind of policies that people are talking about, if we brought them in, then Paddington Bear wouldn't be allowed into the country.
What?
Well, good. He's from Peru. Let him stay in Peru.
What is she talking about?
I don't know.
What is she talking about?
I don't.
She's bonkers as well.
Yeah. The Labour, they can't bring themselves to say, we've had enough. Stop people coming in. And this is a real problem. More and more and more. And as Isabel just said, this country is to say it's full is the understatement of the century. It is creaking at the seams. Our infrastructure is broken because we've got too many people here, and yet we have a government that just wants to let more and more in, and even wants to, the European Court of Bear Rights, as far as Stella Creasy is concerned, let bears in as well. Why not? Let a few animals in. By the way, we'll be talking about animals in just a little while, or people.
And by the way, once these Palestinians are here, they will be allowed to bring a load of more of their relatives who won't only be from Palestine. This isn't restricted to Palestine. They'll be from Lebanon, they'll be from Syria, the whole of that region.
Unbelievable. Well, talking of unbelievable, now we have a thing called independent Inspector of Borders and Immigration.
Oh, who knew?
Our Borders watchdog for short. Yeah, who knew? It really?
Not really done
There you go.
anything, have
Well,
we?
anyway, if you can get the gig, it's 130 grand a year. Anyway, the guy who's in prime position to get this job, he is the government's favourite. He's what they call their preferred candidate. 130 grand a year. He's a sprightly young up-and-comer. He's only 73. His name is John Tuckett. And he's going to get the job almost certainly, but he wants to work from home. Well, you know, I suppose I don't approve of that, but most people do certainly work for the government seem to work from home these days, so that's the way of the world. The only problem is that old sprightly young John Tuckett, 73, his home is in Finland. He's going to work from Finland. Apparently he's got a Finnish wife. His kids
I think this says everything about our attitude to border control, doesn't it?
He envisages, listen to this, so he envisages, this is his words, a 60-40 split between being available for, and I quote, visible appointments and periods of quiet reflection and writing. By the way, his current job, and in the file this under who knew, his current job, he's Immigration Services Commissioner. Now, his triumph since doing that job was he closed the office in order to switch to a fully remote model. In other words, to allow himself to work from home.
Finland.
In bloody Finland. You know, he got out of... I mean, you know, what are these jobs and what are they talking about? Get someone, maybe, I don't know, who's a little bit younger than 73 and, I don't know, someone who lives in bloody Britain. How about that?
I'm kind of thinking also, if you're the Borders watchdog and you really want to do a proper job, you should actually be spending some time at the borders.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that there should be an awful lot of time spent, for example, in the airports. Let's see how those border controls are working. Can I see you please being at the shipping areas, the ports? Can I see you please being down in Kent watching some boats coming over? I don't think you're going to be an effective borders watchdog while you're having time for reflection. You don't need any reflection, my friend. Have you seen the state of our country? Oh, no, because you're in Finland. You know?
You're looking at Russia. Oh, look, there's Russia. You can imagine this guy like sitting on his Finnish balcony going...
Kev, this has given me a headache. It's given me a headache.
What are you doing, John? I'm having a period of quiet reflection. How much are you getting for that? 130 grand a year. I mean... Come on! This is taxpayers' money. Come on, Starmer, find someone else. What are these jobs? What is a border... what is he called?
Border watchdog, whatever.
No, let's get his proper job.
OK,
he's
Chief Inspector.
No, he's Independent Inspector of Borders and Immigration.
Chief Inspector.
Yeah, OK, and his former job was Immigration Services Commissioner. I wonder what the difference is between... What are these jobs? And they're all getting 100 grand a year. They're not turning up for work. They're living
I want to know what are the performance indexes, because if the performance measures are actually having tighter borders, it's not really worked out too well, has it?
Yeah.
So why is this guy? Honestly, this is actually making me feel quite wound up.
OK, folks, give me a call if you can work out what you think the Borders watchdog actually does, apart from periods of quiet reflection in Finland. What do you think his job is? I mean, I'm going to hazard a guess, not much at all. But what do you think it is? And there are thousands of jobs around Whitehall like this that you would not believe that are paying 100,000, 150,000. The money that this government is wasting. So did the former government. They've always done this time immemorial. Just poured money into Whitehall for a load of jobs that make no sense. But Labour, because they are in love with the public sector, this has now become a sickness. And we're in trouble here. We're in trouble. Everything we're talking about tonight, you know, Palestinians being able to settle here, border control bloke living in Finland on 130 grand a year. It just, to me, is building up to a picture that this country under Keir Starmer and loony Labour is going stark staring mad. I mean, you know, we like to call talk the home of common sense, and I think it is. You know, they accuse people like me and Isabel, Mike Graham and Julia Hartley-Brooke, oh, they're right-wing, they've been right-wing. I don't think we're right-wing.
We're just right.
We're right. No, we talk common sense, and I think people understand it. We have a government that is lost in the Alice in Wonderland land of absolute lunacy. Do you fear for the sanity of this nation, folks? Let me know, because I really do. 03444991000, and by an extraordinary coincidence, our next story will confirm that this country is now in need of being locked in a lunatic asylum. We'll talk about the next mad story after these messages.
You know, and I know, and your viewers know, if this had been somebody from any other political party, it would have been Keir Starmer and the Labour Party who would have been leading the charge, saying they have to be shown the door.
Yeah, but it was just disdain for the voters generally. And I mean, that's the worst sort of result that Keir Starmer can have, because it led to people like me having conversations about, is this what they really think of us? Is this what they really think of you?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the Political Asylum, and this nation, actually, the way it's going under Keir Starmer and his Labour lunatic government, needs to be put into an asylum. It really, really does. And check this one out. I'm still with Isabel Oakeshott. Now, this is going to be good news for the new Health Minister, Ashley Dalton, you know, who has deep sympathy for those who identify as llamas. Turns out that those kind of sentiments are shared by the Children's Society. Per perfectly nice organisation, I guess, but it looks to me as if it's heading in a dangerously stupid and woke direction. This is a report, and this is important. You're paying for it, folks. This is a report funded by the Home Office, so it's a taxpayer-funded official report by the Children's Society that asserts that kids who identify as animals and walk on all fours should be shown empathy. They're often called furries. The so-called furries are apparently, according to this report, this is, and I'm quoting, the furries are walking, talking animals. No, they're not. They're not. They're walking, talking human beings who say they're animals, but they're not animals. Funnily enough, you'll be surprised to hear this, 1 in 8 of them also self-identify as transgender and or non-binary. The guide also provides important information on Therians. Therians are people, it says this in the report, who actually experience being an animal. No, they don't. This is just rubbish. We're paying for this. And I think, you're a mother, Isabel, I think this kind of attitude, you know, indulging these kids who say, I'm an animal, oh, look, you're on all fours, isn't that wonderful? I think that is almost child abuse.
I agree with you. The Children's Societies are supposedly there to prevent child abuse. I think this is sick. I think it's a cult. I think it's creepy. And I would go so far as to actually sanction people who are parents who encourage this in their children. You know, I think it's worse than neglectful. I think it is encouraging serious mental health problems. No child or teenager who identifies as an animal is likely to have a happy, balanced, good life, are they?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm turning up for a job interview. I'm going to be a fox today. Would you mind employing a fox? You know, not going to happen really, is it? So it is abusive. There is something really sick about this, and I can't imagine that it prospers in many countries where, you know, people actually have to work hard for a living and worry about bigger things.
You know, I mean, good to get the chance to talk to you about Ashley Dalton, who, of course, you know, is really into people who identify as llamas. By the way, she's one of these classic Labour politicians who thinks anybody who voted Brexit or believes in Leave is thick. Well, Ashley, from what I'm reading about you, I'd say, you know, people in glass houses, you know, you should take the plank out of your own eye before you start having a go at the rest of us, because you don't seem to be the sharpest pin in the pack to me. She says that trans women are women. Now, this is the second most important person when it comes to the National Health Service. She is West Streeting's new deputy. That is not medically or scientifically true.
Trans women are not women.
No,
you know,
exactly.
They are men pretending to be women. I don't understand what the confusion is here. I'm with Donald Trump. There's only 2 sexes, male and female. And let's stop pretending.
And there are only 2 genders. The word gender has been hijacked by the trans lobby to say, oh, well, gender is different to sex. Well, when you use the word sex to signify your biology, your birth biology, it's the same as gender. You know, my sex is male and my gender is male. They've hijacked. Say, oh no, see, genders are different.
Oh, it's just
107 genders. No, there aren't. No, there aren't. It's nonsense, folks. And we've got to stand up against it, because this is the kind of insanity, you know, the be kind Labour's insanity that is consuming this country. I think we've got some footage, some illuminating footage of Ashley Dalton in full flow. Take it away, Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, the new Health Minister has stated that it's OK for a human being to present as a llama. So what I want to know is, if I have a family member who presents as a llama, suddenly becomes ill in the middle of the night, do they send for a doctor, a vet or a straitjacket?
Mr. Speaker, I can just say to the honourable member that my honourable friend, the Minister for Public Health, believes in treating every human being with the dignity and respect they deserve, even the honourable gentleman.
What about llamas?
Yeah. Wes, what a loss you are to the stand-up comedy circuit. Lee Anderson, who is a genuinely witty man, running rings around those half-wits on the other side of the house. I mean, Wes Streeting is one of the better ones. I still think he's very overrated, but he's one of the better ones. You know, Labour need to be able to respond to what Lee is saying, because he's just trying to say, isn't this all insane? And Labour won't say it is. It's frightening.
Wouldn't it have been great if Wes Streeting had actually surprised us all and got up there and said, well, you know, I think she was speaking figuratively, and clearly people are not llamas and llamas are not people. And
and how, you know, this is the Health Secretary, and it was in The Sun last Saturday. I read every word, all 53 of them. No, it was quite a long article. Good article, in which, to his credit, he declared war on NHS wokery, and he said this daft nonsense has to stop. And you go, thank God.
And then he does
a little bit of sanity in a world gone mad, and then. Who is appointed as his new deputy, because his old deputy turns out to be one hell of a bastard. What was his name? Andrew Gwynn, who seems to think that old ladies should die, hates his constituents, hates all Labour voters. So to hell with him. He was a bad enough deputy. Now in comes Ashley Dalton, who believes that we must be very sympathetic to humans who think they're llamas or identify as llamas, and she believes that trans women are women. So he's declaring war on wokery, and then you get Mrs. Woke is his new deputy. It's not going to happen, is it?
It's not going to happen, and the NHS is absolutely infected with this. It's run through the whole system, and it's not curable, I don't think. No. You know, it isn't. There's far too many people that are just thoroughly signed up to that agenda.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, with the NHS, you know, Wes Streeting, latest in a long line of health secretaries, they all come in. I'll fix the broken NHS, and then in about 3 months' time, it's them that are broken. You know, they get that hangdog look, and he is just messing around the edges. He's getting
barely that, actually. I mean, making announcements is not fixing anything.
Exactly right. That's this government for you: making announcements, and doing nothing. And it's quite frightening. But Streeting's going to get nowhere. He's done nothing about the wokery that you've talked about. He's done nothing about the 800 diversity officers.
I mean, it'd be quite easy, actually. He could just start by saying, I'm banning Black History Month celebrations in our hospitals. Yeah. Why do any hospitals need to celebrate Black History Month?
Exactly right. And I called on him the other day. I said, OK, Wes, this is 2 days ago. So here's how you can get the ball rolling. You can announce that from now on, the NHS nurses and doctors will no longer ask men before they get x-rays if they're pregnant. We will stop this farce to prove he means business about wokery, getting rid of wokery. Response came there, none. He's not going to do anything. The NHS will continue to go to hell in a handcart, which is exactly where this entire nation is going under this barking mad government whose incompetence and lunacy is just so off the scale. It really, really is frightening. Isabel, great to have you in. We'll see you again tomorrow night. That's Isabel Oakeshott, back in a mo with lots more madness.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the second hour. In half an hour, 30 minutes or so, I'll be taking your calls. 0344 499 1000. I think you got the tenor of what we were talking about in the first hour. Are you concerned that this country is going corporately insane under this mad government? And isn't it about time, our lead story, that the Home Office banned this guy, Hobbless Mohammed, the worst of worst hate preachers, you know, who believes that people who rape babies are fine as long as they pray. Isn't it about time he was banned? Because he's been banned from all 29 European countries in the Schengen area, has recently been stopped from entering, trying to sneak into both Germany and Holland, where he had gigs lined up. But as things stand, he's all set for this time next week. He starts a 5-city tour of this country, selling tickets like hotcakes, apparently, where he will preach his hate around the country. He bans people from condemning Hamas, for example. What do you think about that? What do you think about this insane country? 0344 499 1000. Oh, I've almost forgot your thoughts on the fact that all Palestinians, all 2 million of them, are now free to just come here. Come to Britain. A judge has opened the drawbridge or lowered the drawbridge, and they can all come in, and we can't stop them because they're going to be allowed in the same way that Ukrainians are. Ukrainians, quite right. You know, it wasn't their fault that Russia invaded their country. I think that the situation in Palestine, Gaza, with Israel is a lot more nuanced, and that's to put it mildly. So what do you feel about that? 2 million, potentially 2 million Palestinians coming here to live, and there's nothing we can do to stop them. 0344 499 1000. Before we go to my next guest, I want to play you something pretty damn haunting. This is footage of Andrew Searle, and what we're going to talk about is what happened. It's a great murder mystery, and when I say great, horrible murder mystery, in the south of France. British couple who were living there, Andrew Searle, 65, and his 56-year-old wife, Dawn, were found dead after what looked like violent attacks at their home. We'll go into the details in a little while, but just before that, here's some haunting footage. This is the last film of Andrew Searle going to a local shop near the village where they lived, a place called Pesquy, north of Toulouse, in a very remote area to the east in the south of France. But here's Andrew Searle, the last time he was seen alive. So there he is. He's just at the counter. Hopefully he'll start moving in a little while. Oh, hang on. What happened to the footage? We've lost the footage. Can we get the footage, please? You know, basically, you see him going into a shop, and he pays for something, and then he disappears. It looks like it's been lost in our system, but we'll get that to you by the end of this segment because it's worth looking at. To discuss this, I mustn't call it an intriguing mystery because it is. Really, it's a very sad mystery. This happy couple somehow found dead at their home in a remote area of France. Let's discuss this with someone who knows France very well. She used to live there. She is a foreign affairs correspondent of the Independent newspaper, Mary Dejewski. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you. Good evening.
Well, this is, as I say, I'm trying not to frame this as an intriguing murder mystery because 2 people have died in horrific circumstances. This was in the village of Pesquy, north of Toulouse, in a rather remote area to the east of the south of France. Last Thursday, Dawn, she's 56, was discovered in her pyjamas outside their house with a head injury, surrounded by her jewellery scattered around. Meanwhile, in the house, Andrew Searle, 65, a former investigator, He was found, apparently, what we're hearing is hanging, potentially with a gag in his mouth. Now, police are investigating a number of theories, one being that it could have been murder-suicide, the other being that because of his job, he used to investigate the criminal fraud, that perhaps it could be some kind of gangland revenge hit on him. But essentially, as I say, in the most horrible terms, this is one hell of a mystery, isn't it, Mary?
Well, it is, and I'm glad in a way that that you outlined all the terrible details, and I didn't have to, because it really is. I mean, it's both shocking and gruesome. It's a very remote area. It's sort of on the edge of the Massif Central. It's quite mountainous, and it's a long way from anywhere. Now, this also means that you've got basically the local police are initially responsible for investigating, and their response has been to say, well, you know, there's never been anything like this anywhere near here, and you can quite imagine that.
Indeed. Now, I believe that in France, information is hard to get hold of around this mystery, but it is cropping up in other countries. Italy, Italians are getting many more details than the French. What are you hearing from Italy?
Well, I was only hearing exact sort of details of the crime scene, which certainly reached Italy quite a lot earlier than they reached, say, readers and viewers in France, or certainly in the UK. I think that, I mean, the appalling thing is that there's these completely different theories. There is the theory of his past life as a crime investigator, which you can quite see might possibly bring those sort of consequences. But, you know, it takes a lot to track somebody down there. Another thought, which looks, you know, the sort of how they were found, does seem to support the idea of a burglary that went very, very badly wrong. But the more you think about that, the more you tend to think, well, you know, that could be actually staged.
Yeah.
The way both of them were found, the business of the jewellery scattered, and I think the jewellery box, those sort of details almost look too much like a burglary that's been, as it were, staged and didn't happen with the sort of as you might expect something like that to happen.
I think it's reasonable for for us to speculate to some extent. You mustn't overdo it, because two people are lying dead in the most horrible circumstances.
Exactly. Yes.
But you know, as you quite rightly say, people are saying, well, the fact that she was found outside, her head had been stoved in apparently, and she'd been bludgeoned and surrounded by her jewellery, and that he's inside hanging, apparently with a gag in his mouth, that doesn't mean that it could not have been a murder-suicide, if you see what I'm saying. That's what people...
No, absolutely, I agree. And of course, you know, against that, you've got everybody, in a way, everybody's best instincts. You know, relatives don't even want to think about that. And the friends and neighbours, you know, they apparently were quite sociable in the locality. And people are saying, well, you know, they're very nice people. They seem to get on absolutely fine. Then there were certain questions that, you know, you heard on their grapevine that were passed on, that maybe he had money worries. It's not, you know, there's a lot of things going into this, none of which at the moment seems to be conclusive.
Yeah, that's my first thought, because I come across this quite a lot, and I'm not accusing the Searles of this, but we should bear in mind, by the way, they moved there, I think 7 or 8 years ago, only got married 2 years ago, so, you know, ostensibly everything should be happy. They've got a number of children by different marriages, earlier marriages, and Mr. Searle's father, Fred, seems like a loving father, retired British major. He's saying we have thousands of questions but no answers. But I've come across this quite often, and I'm not accusing the Searles of this, but we have all these TV shows in this country which are all about, you know, new life in the sun, escape to the chateau. You know, and people watch this stuff on TV and they go, oh, yeah, you know, and the jobs or when these people go, oh, yeah, we moved to France, we bought this chateau, and now we're running a yoga centre. You know, well, you know, you think, well, is that really going to make you a living? So they buy these properties. They've seen it on the TV that you can make a nice living in the sunshine. And I think, and again, I'm not accusing the Searles of this, but people get down to these places. They find themselves living in the middle of nowhere. And in fact, the yoga centre, or whatever it was they planned, doesn't bring any money in at all. And they soon start to experience money difficulties. So it's definitely a possibility in these circumstances, I would suggest. I'm not hearing. Can I hear?
No, sorry. I thought maybe that was the last word on, because I don't have anything to add to that, really. I mean, that's it. It's entirely true that, you know, you can move out there and you can think that it's permanent, but there are all sorts of complications. And you know, even if you speak the language and even if you're reasonably sociable, actually maintaining a house in that sort of, you know, in that sort of area, in that sort of position, that can add up.
Yeah. And I remember the reason I wanted to get you on about this story was I remember we got you on about the horrific rape saga that was in I think one of the remoter areas of Provence, and you were talking about these remote areas of France where I think people from Britain don't quite understand, you know, how different they can be to what we would expect of modern life. And I remember you saying to me, it's always haunted me ever since, that strange things happen in these places. So would this be the kind of area that we could be talking about?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a long way. You know, even when you look at a map and you say, well, it's to the northeast of Toulouse. Well, it is to the northeast of Toulouse, but it'll actually be quite difficult to get there. Local buses in France have improved, but it's not wonderful. So basically, you're reliant on a car. The roads are not wonderful either, and you know, to get anywhere, you may have a couple of local shops. You may have nothing. But it can be very wild, and that adds to not just to the sort of sense of possible isolation, but it actually adds to the expense of being there, because you know, you have your house, but it needs maintenance, and you can get very extreme weather, which you know, I was always for the time that we had a house in France, which we had in a town, because I was absolutely adamant that I didn't want to be in the middle of nowhere, deserted place. But you know, if the phone rang at sort of 7 o'clock in the morning UK time, and it was our French neighbour, I was always absolutely terrified that, you know, something had flooded, a tree had fallen on the roof. There were all sorts of possible things that had happened. There was nothing ever quite that catastrophic, but you know, there was always the possibility there.
I mean, you know, I've been to France quite a few times, well, lots, and I've always found the French to be, you know, contrary to, you know, that old cliche that the French hate the Brits and the Brits hate the French. I mean, I always think that nationally that may be the case, but on a personal level, I think both nationalities tend to get on quite well. But in these rural areas, are they hostile to interlopers, to foreigners?
I think it depends very much. I mean, it depends partly on your attitude, and it seems to me that the Searles were absolutely fine. That they socialised a lot with the people around them. I think. I don't know what the position was with language, but that can be a difficulty, and I think the French maybe tend to be a little bit more private than the British do, especially among country dwellers. It's almost, you might think it's perverse, but where there are fewer people, maybe there's actually less socialising than there would be, say in the UK, and villages are further apart. So I think that there is on the one hand, a greater sense of isolation, but also a degree of protecting privacy. But also, I think what we were talking about last time was the extent to which there are secrets, and there are secrets that are kept inside remote communities. And, there may be a sort of hidden life of a place where you are that you simply don't penetrate, but everybody else around you knows.
Interesting. Last question, really, Mary. Good to talk to you again. What's the murder rate like in France? I mean, what the violence in that country? I mean, we have a real violence problem here, quite a high murder rate.
Oh, goodness. I don't know. One thing that I do know is that there were killings, including suicides, more often than you expect, because there's actually quite widespread gun ownership, especially in the countryside. And so because there are such large parts of France that are rural, then and there are people who have guns for hunting purposes or self-defense, and so there is that sort of gun crime. There's also something which was really noticeable compared with the UK, that when figures were given for or details were given for suicides, that there was a relatively high suicide rate among police, among the gendarmes.
Oh, wow. Really, that's interesting.
And one of the sort of explanations given, aside from the obvious complexities of the job, was that they actually had access to firearms in a way that people in this country, including the police, generally wouldn't.
That's interesting. Well, listen, all we can hope is that that this mystery is solved for the sake of the children and Mr. Searle's dad, and of course our thoughts and sympathies are with the family. Mary, thank you so much for talking to me. Good to talk to you again. Mary Jajewski. Start that again, Kevin. Oh, God. Mary Jajewski. It's not that difficult, is it? Foreign Affairs correspondent at The Independent. That'll get on Mike Graham's gaffs, won't it, on Friday? Thank you very much. Next up, we're going to talk about Birmingham. It's a scandal. Birmingham's basically bankrupt, has been for 2 years. The councillors are busy slashing expenses left, right and centre. 17.5% hike on your council tax. They are slashing £300 million from their annual budget. Services going left, right and centre. Shutting libraries, social care, children's care, everything. Cut. There was a debate last week, though. It lasted half an hour, and man, suddenly they spent money. Almost unanimous vote in favour of actually shelling out some money. You'll never guess what it was. It was a pay rise for themselves, for the councillors. That sailed through 5.7%. As I said earlier, Tone Deaf doesn't even begin to cover it. It's a hell of a scandal, I think. We'll talk about that after this break.
Because at the end of the day, apparently it says that now 15% of the total number of people behind bars are people who have been sent back in after they've been released. So there's clearly a problem, and you've always said this, Vanessa, with what happens when they're in there as well, because what they're not being encouraged to do is figure out how to stay away.
I can't say this enough. The bigger picture is how our prison system has been run into and our justice system for that matter, has been run into the ground.
Yeah, right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, while we're all struggling in the cost of living crisis, it's nice to know, isn't it, that our politicians are doing very well indeed. Our MPs only this week were awarded a 2.8% pay rise, taking their basic salary to £93,904 a year, so 94 grand a year. 2.8 pay rise. How are you doing? You getting 94 grand a year? Well, they are doing a great job, aren't they, as well? The country is just running like a well-oiled machine. I think they should double their pay. They're doing so well. Or should we half it? I don't know. What do you think? I'd give them about 10 quid a week, the job they're doing so far. 0344 499 1000. What do you think? Should we give MPs 10 quid a year? Because that's about all they're worth, the way things are going. Now, we're going to talk about local politicians now. These are the local councillors on Birmingham Council, Britain's second city. Now, 2 years ago, you may remember, Birmingham basically went bankrupt. It's got a massive pension dependency. The city contributes £141 million a year to its own staff's pension funds. That's the second highest pension fund contribution by a council anywhere in the country. And also they had a long-running row with female employees who were suing them over equal pay, and the females won, and that cost the council one hell of a lot of money. In other words, it was a Labour council that was really, really badly run. And it looks as if it still is, as far as I can work out. Incredibly, the guy who was running it in 2023 when it announced bankruptcy, I remember the story, his name's John Cotton. He was recommended to the job by his mate Keir Starmer, Labour leader of Birmingham Council. So we go, oh my God, Birmingham's gone bankrupt. Get hold of the leader of the council, the Labour leader of the council at this disastrous moment. Oh, you can't. No, he's gone to New York on holiday. That's where he was when this was announced. Incredibly, to my mind, John Cotton is still in charge. Anyway, last week the councillors sat down. This is some of the things they've had to do recently. They're slashing, brutally scything £300 million from the annual budget, slashing local services, children's care, social care, housing, all of that stuff by £149 million. They're shutting libraries, they're flogging off public land and imposing punishing council tax increases of 17.5%. You might say, well, you know, they're in deep trouble, they've got to do all this. OK, fair enough. I'm very surprised that the guy who presided over the demise is still presiding over the alleged attempts to repair the damage, but he is. Anyway, at this important meeting, it took them just half an hour last week to virtually unanimously agree that they all deserved much more money for their sterling work running Birmingham into the ground. Labour leader John Cotton, as I just mentioned, he justified this 5.7 pay rise. It's their allowances, but trust me, these allowances are generous. He justified this 5.7 rise by saying it was vital to enable those who give their time to come forward. Fair enough. But of course, he then added diversity needs to be represented in this room. And therefore you had to put up by 5.7, 30 minutes to give themselves a pay rise while doing nothing but slashing costs left, right and centre. 5.7%, really? I think this is a scandal. It's an absolute scandal. Let's talk to former communications advisor to the West Midlands Mayor, Andy Street, Ashvir Sangha. Ashvir, thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here, Kevin.
Well, you got the gist of what I was saying. I'm reading the way I see it. This is not the moment for councillors to be very swiftly and almost unanimously voting themselves a 5.7% pay rise, allowances rise, if you will, while, you know, imposing these huge council tax hikes on the poor people of Birmingham, slashing services left, right and centre. But they don't stop almost for a second to consider that maybe giving themselves a pay rise under these circumstances is not a good idea. John Cotton seems to be tone deaf, to say the least.
It's not a pretty picture, Kevin. I mean, I've grown up in Birmingham. I've lived in Birmingham pretty much my whole life. And when you're paying more and getting less, it's not exactly the ideal time to be putting up all the councillors' allowances. Although it might surprise you that I do actually sympathise with John Cotton's point about getting more people to be able to afford to be councillors, because long term, I mean, no one's going to vote for having higher pay for any politician, but longer term, it could be that we just end up with a bunch of students and a bunch of retired people as the only people who become councillors. But I don't think it's the right move to be sticking up your allowances at this time.
No, it really isn't. You know, as I say, I've got some sympathy for the fact that council's got to make enormous cuts because it went bankrupt, basically. But not at this moment, while you're doing all of that, to very perfunctorily, that's the point. They didn't debate this. They didn't really see this as much of an issue. Oh, yeah, pay rise for us. Yeah. Oh, yeah, slash everything else, but pay rise for us. It is such a bad look. And this guy, John Cotton, I mean, I remember it well. I remember us covering the story. We went, oh, my God, Britain's second city? Out of the blue, suddenly it's gone bankrupt? Who's running this show? John Cotton, the Labour leader. Right, get hold of him. I'm sorry, he's in New York on holiday. I'm astonished to hear he's still there.
Well, he's not still in New York, Kevin, now, but you're right.
Sorry, I didn't.
He definitely should have come back from that holiday, and I think he regrets it now.
Okay.
And it's going to be one heck of a fight in May 2026 next year when they have this council election. I think it's going to be very interesting what happens in Birmingham. Now, they're all up for election, all 101 councillors.
What I mean, by the way, it's 101 councillors, as you quite rightly say, and you know, it's not often you'll hear me praise the Green Party, but I'm going to, because Birmingham has 2 Green councillors, Green Party councillors, and they alone voted against this pay rise. So good for them. Good for them. I think they saw the tone deafness of this. It's astonishing to me that the rest of them didn't. But how did Birmingham end up like this? Well, before it actually was forced to virtually effectively declare bankruptcy, you know, we know about the equal pay thing, which was pretty crippling. But what was this? Is mismanagement, is it not, on a wide scale? What was going wrong?
One word answer: yes. I mean, certainly the equal pay bill compounded the issue, but I think if anyone is being fair-minded, frankly, Brummies like me have been let down by council leadership for a long time, and you know, we're kind of paying more, getting less, and we can't just keep going to the levers of upping council tax or cutting services. We've got to find another way to do this differently, generate revenue. And some people will say, well, we inherited we got a hospital pass from central government, we got cuts. But frankly, the people in Birmingham don't really care why it's happening. They just want good leaders that will come and fix it. And at the end of the day, around the world, there are cities that are well run, that are run on budget, and they pick up the rubbish on the streets, and it's safe, and they're well run. And I think anyone being fair-minded would say that Birmingham is not being as well run as it could be.
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you another thing, Ashvir, that people generally are sick of, right? It's Labour politicians talking about spending a load of money in the name of, drumroll, diversity. DEI. I'm not against diversity. Nobody should be. It's a nice concept. Everybody should get an even break in life. But you know what I'm talking about. DEI has been corrupted. It's actually been turned into something that is the opposite of giving people equal opportunities. And we are sick to death of hearing Labour politicians go, we're going to spend all this money because of diversity. We're sick of it. It's costing us a lot of money. John Cotton doesn't seem to have got the memo.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I want good leaders. I want good leaders, Kevin. I want good leaders in Birmingham, and I don't really care what colour they are. I care about the content of their character.
Totally right. Totally agree with that. But how did the people of Birmingham react to the councillors voting themselves a nice pay rise?
They were partying in the streets, Kevin.
Champagne. Good for the councillors.
They were greeting them with roses as they entered the council house. I think it just, people, if I'm honest, I don't think people are that surprised, which probably speaks to the level of apathy and disappointment there is with politicians. They're all the same, that kind of stuff. And if you look at the turnout in local council elections, it's really dismal.
It's really low. And one last, I agree with you. One last point I want to make to you, Ashvir, is I gather that Birmingham's being overrun by rats, which again doesn't sort of speak well of the council, does it?
Yeah, well, that's no way to describe those politicians, Kevin.
No. I mean, rodent rats.
I have heard that, and I know there's a lot of pubs and hospitality outlets on Bennett's Hill in the centre of Birmingham that have been complaining about that for a long time.
Yeah.
But maybe it's an apt metaphor for the situation we're facing that we need to fix.
You used to work for Andy Street, good guy, by the way. Are you still involved in the wonderful world of politics?
I'm still in touch with Andy, and I take a keen interest in politics. It's a pretty thankless task, though, Kevin. It's nice to be in the piece, watching it, rather than in the field doing it. So it's easy for us to criticise. It's much harder to do it.
Yeah, I've always found it much more fun to be standing on the sidelines lobbing grenades. You know, it's easy work because of this sort of thing. It really is. It's just, I think it's horrendous. 5.7% pay rise in the midst of Birmingham's crisis. It's just all wrong. But very good to talk to you, Ashvir. Thank you very much for your time. Ashvir Sangar, their former communications advisor to the West Midlands Mayor, Andy Street, Birmingham. I mean, you know, these people voting themselves a pay rise. There's a story came out a couple of days ago that Birmingham and Southampton, two, you won't be surprised to hear, Labour-run councils, are getting overrun with rats because they don't do enough bin collections and so on and so forth. So your thoughts on the Birmingham councillors feathering their own nest while basically fiddling while Rome burns, or rather while Birmingham turns into a rat-infested hellhole. 03444991000. Now, later in the show, actually in about half an hour or so, we're going to go effectively over to America to discuss Elon Musk, Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, his extraordinary attempts, or it's not attempts, he's doing it, his extraordinary sort of bonfire of government excesses, the things that he has discovered that government departments were spending money on. He's raised questions about the US Aid Department, which is the American equivalent of our foreign aid, whereby people who earn $100,000 a year seem to be living in multi-million-pound houses and accruing multi-million-dollar fortunes. So he's raised questions about that. They're worried about the education department. They fear that just like here, educators in America are busy trying to teach American kids how to be left-wing. So Elon Musk is driving a truck through all these extravagant departments, these wasteful departments, saving money left, right and centre. We'll bring you the details later. I've got all the facts and the figures. But before we get to that, don't imagine that a similar kind of madness isn't going on right here. And Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, has highlighted just a couple of examples. So if you think that America needed Elon Musk and Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, maybe we need it here as well. Listen to Farage.
Do you ever wonder where your taxes go and whether your money is being spent properly? Well, have a look at what's come across my desk. Oh, you'll like this. The environmental impact of filmmaking using Star Wars to improve sector sustainability practices. No, I'm not even making it up. Over £200,000. Try this. The cultural legacies of the British Empire. Classical music's colonial history, 1750 to 1900, 1.2 million, funded by UK Research and Innovation, a non-departmental government body. When you see what they're doing in America, do you get the feeling we ought to be doing it here? This is all a complete waste of your taxpayer money. It's keeping people in jobs who don't deserve to have them. This is the first in a series of these.
Well, I think Nigel's making rather a good point there. Also, don't forget, as we discussed earlier in the show, we're spending £130,000 a year on a borders watchdog who lives in bloody Finland. The money this lot are wasting, this Labour lunatics are wasting, is off the scale, as Mr Farage just pointed out. Your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. Now, do we go to the phones now? Or, we need to go to a break first, and then we'll come to the phones after these messages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to talk about Prince Andrew. He's getting involved in business shenanigans again, and this one could be a serious security risk to this country. So we'll talk about that next. In the meantime, let's squeeze a call or two, probably just one. Let's talk to Georgina in London. Hi, Georgina.
Good evening, Kevin. It's great to talk to you. I just want to say it's a very sad day when common sense becomes an uncommon thing. We've already got migrants coming over here in boats, left, right and centre, and diving into the UK gravy boats. And I've got to tell you, there's no more gravy left. We haven't even got enough for our own people. And, you know, these immigrants who don't want to love the UK as we do and stand for everything it stands for, need to make alternative arrangements elsewhere. They can't come here and try to make our country a carbon copy of the country they left in the first place.
Some of them are like that. You're absolutely right, Georgina. What do you make of these judges, or this particular judge who yesterday ruled effectively that every Palestinian over there in Gaza, there's nearly 2 million of them, can come to this country in the same way as Ukrainians can?
Well, I was just going to say, I thought that was part for the Ukrainians, and now it's the Palestinians. This is opening the floodgates.
Absolutely, that's exactly what it is, yeah.
To encourage more refugees into the UK is a complete and utter madness when the government is totally ignoring the immigration problem that we've already got. It's opening the floodgates. We can't afford to look after our own British citizens. All our resources are absolutely exhausted. Do you know, enough is enough. The government we have at the moment are totally unfit for purpose. We need some Trump ideology here in the UK to get our country back on track. Nigel Farage is absolutely right with what he says.
I couldn't agree with you more. But don't you find? I mean, I'm becoming, more and more frustrated. You feel like you're screaming into the abyss. I mean, this government doesn't. I mean, it's barking mad.
They're not listening to us. They're not listening to the people. It's a majority of the people are saying now, we cannot cope with any more of this madness. I mean, it's not just the immigration. It's everything, the wokeness. Wokeness is good to a certain extent, but when you've got children identifying as animals, that's
and being indulged. That's the point, Georgina. And being indulged.
Right. Exactly right, Kevin. The parents are actually saying, yes, this is okay. Now, I'm a Gen X child, so, I'm a bit long in the tooth, but I do know what's what. And if I'd have done that when I was a little girl, I'd have had to go and see a psychiatrist.
Yeah, well, I don't think I can go into what my dad would have done if I'd have turned up dressed as a furry, because I date back to the days when your mum and dad, if you misbehaved, what they did was they hit you. So if I dressed up as a bear, I don't think I'd keep the bear costume on very long, because my dad would see to it. Now, I'm not advocating that kind of punishment, but a bit of common sense from common sense parents would be, take that stupid outfit off and stop crawling around on the floor. You're not an animal. What would be wrong with a parent saying that?
Well, parents now, children learn by what they see. And if they see their parents, going along with all this madness, then they're going to think it's okay. These are our children. We have to protect them. We have to bring them up in the correct manner. Schools should not be indulging in this. They're wrong as well, and the parents most definitely. It is wrong. Things need to be turned around. There's two sexes, male and female.
Two genders as well, because it means the same thing, male and female. Exactly right, Georgina. We need to stop the madness, but indulging these kids who say they're animals, I think, as I said to Isabel Oakeshott earlier, that amounts to child abuse. They should be told you're not an animal. This is not helping them indulge. Oh, look, he's on all fours. He's obviously an animal. Rubbish. Georgina, what a great call. Can you keep in touch? Can you call me again as soon as you like? Nice to talk. Georgina in London. Let's go to break now, and we'll talk about Prince Andrew next. Stay tuned.
people from Gaza who are now apparently going to be given permission to come and settle in the United Kingdom for good, if it is something that's going to happen, how will we tell whether these people coming from Palestine are in Hamas or not?
Well, it's stupid, isn't it, quite frankly, and it's another story over the last few days where judges and the judiciary just are not in lockstep with the British people, and they don't represent, or they're not acting for the British people. They need to back away, actually. The government and Parliament decide who comes into this country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I think it really is now time for the King to take action against his idiot brother, the younger brother, Prince Andrew, the Duke, the not-so-Grand Duke of York. He's always scrabbling around trying to make money, trying to become buddies with rich people. We know one of the rich people that he became very close friends with, Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile, which brought him and the royal family into great scandal and ignominy. His own embarrassment continues to this day. He's in disgrace, and yet he's still scrabbling around for money. Now, the newspapers over the last couple of days have been full of his latest financial shenanigans, which I think are worrying. I think this is a matter of national security. It turns out that he has been assisting a Grenadian former ambassador to Russia. He's been helping him raise £8 billion. The company is called, they're an investment company, they're called Waterberg Sterling. And Oleg Führer, the former ex-man in Moscow, the former man in Moscow for Grenada, he's vice chairman of this company. Now, this company is linked to China's ongoing Belt and Road Initiative, and that basically is a plan. They globally build infrastructure for developing countries, what we used to call third world countries, and thereby spread Beijing's influence all over the planet, around the world. Andrew apparently has been engaged in passing on the contacts he made in his Dragon's Den style pitch at the palace. You remember he used to host these events where people would come with their business ideas and he put them in. It was quite a nice idea, but that was just before his downfall over his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, and that ever since then he's been in disgrace, Newsnight interview and so on and so forth. But this strikes me. We're talking about getting involved in a business that is linked to China's bid to spread its own influence around the world. A member of the royal family shouldn't be doing this. This is national security. Let's talk to a former senior military intelligence officer, Philip Ingram. Hello, Philip.
Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, this is quite worrying, don't you think? I mean, you know, if he must go around trying to scrounge money off some paedophile, not a great idea. But it doesn't particularly affect this nation. It affected the royal family, plunged him into great embarrassment, and it affected himself. But this is a company that's linked to China's Belt and Road Initiative, and therefore I think this is a matter of national security, and I think the King should step in and say, Andrew, enough, don't you think?
I think it's a matter of reputation where the King should step in and say, look, Andrew, take a step back and stop dealing with countries and individuals who are potential security threats. Has Andrew got anything that is going to be a secret and going to give the keys to something that could be exploited by China or the Russians? No, not really. And again, if we put it into the context of our government is giving Chinese contractors access to building wind farms off our coast, which is part of our critical national infrastructure, and that's only come out in the press today, then what he's doing is very minor indeed. He's extremely naive. He has been the whole way through. He's an unpleasant individual. He's always been like that, and that naivety is being exploited by individuals and countries who are hostile to our way of living.
Yeah, I must admit, I mean, I think this is a serious story. It's an important story, but my first reaction was, well, what would a serious investment company need of someone like Prince Andrew? What use could he possibly be? But apparently it's handing over details of contacts he made. Well, don't forget he was a business envoy for this country for a long time, where he flew around the world mostly playing golf, but allegedly helping this country's business activities around the planet. But this company, this investment company, Waterberg Sterling, are trying to raise £8 billion. And in their documentation, in their pamphlet, he's named, you know, this is where he's so unwise. He's referred to as HRH. And he's so unwise to let himself be used like this, let his name get involved. And as I say, you're right. I mean, it doesn't cut right to the heart of, issues that could badly affect this country. But it's a really bad look for the royal family. And I just think the king should step in.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's a very bad look for the royal family, and in that, a bad look for the country. They're after his little black book of contacts. I'm surprised because they clearly don't have good people advising them on their marketing. If they're using him as someone that they're putting on as one of their ambassadors, or in their brochures and all the rest of it, they clearly haven't done the research on the reputation that he's got in this country. So that reputation will drag their name down a bit. But the Chinese won't really care much about that. The Russians won't care much about that. They will just see this senior official, because they won't see the difference between someone who's a politician or someone who's royal family. This senior, very well linked individual, that's part of the company, and they'll be using that to try and market themselves to get additional money. It's huge naivety, and he should be strongly advised to step back. Security services will be all over this.
Yeah, he is. His foolishness knows no bounds, and with sympathy, I have some sympathy for the king, because I just think he's like a sort of naughty child. He's very difficult to control. But I think the Riot Act should be read to him right now. While I've got you, Philip, let me ask you about this. President Trump, I mean, it looks as if the ceasefire... Yeah, you knew this was coming. The ceasefire in Gaza looks precarious, to say the least. It looks like it's going to collapse for reasons that are on record. The Hamas somewhat stunned by the fact they're releasing these people who look like they've just come out of Belsen. Hamas, so inhumane are these people that they didn't realise this might not reflect well on them. They're reneging on the deal. And President Trump has said, you renege on that deal, you do not release all of those hostages by this Saturday midday, which is the deal, the agreement. President Trump said all hell will break loose. Hamas calling his bluff, say, never mind your threats, not time to make threats. Now, you know what they say about President Trump, take him seriously, but don't take him literally. Well, what I want to ask you about, I haven't got long, but apparently a number of B-52 bombers, unannounced, have landed here in Britain within shooting distance, if I can put it that way, of Gaza. What do you think might be going on? Because President Trump is busy proving that when he makes threats, he means it.
Very much so. The B-52s are there to threaten Hamas. They're there to threaten any of the opponents of Israel. They're also there to threaten Vladimir Putin and force him to the negotiating table with regard to Ukraine. Hamas, I'm hearing behind closed doors that Hamas are going to comply with what the original agreement was this weekend and release, I think it's another 4 hostages. But President Trump had said all of the hostages, and Prime Minister Netanyahu had reiterated, oh, we'll accept all of the hostages, otherwise we're going to go back to war. So there's this slight uncertainty as to what's actually going to happen this weekend, and I think Hamas are nervous. President Trump's not going to want to get involved in direct conflict into Gaza and with Hamas, because that would mean at some stage potentially having to put ground troops in and it becoming very, very messy indeed. So he's using a really big stick, and as big a stick as he can get his hands on, and B-52s are pretty big sticks.
Indeed, they certainly are. Biggest planes in the world, and serious bombing machines, death machines, if you like. But I think Hamas, and I'm glad to see it, to be honest with you, they're very discombobulated by this guy. There's a new sheriff in town, and he doesn't play by the rules that they're used to. And it looks as if, once again, Donald talking tough is going to pay dividends.
Oh, very much so. Before he got inaugurated, he turned around and said, if the hostages aren't released by the time I'm inaugurated, then all hell will break loose. And he keeps reiterating that. Hamas were stupid in coming out in the way they did, and effectively sticking 2 fingers up at the West and at the Israelis in the way they've been parading the hostages and giving them goodie bags and dressing them in uniforms and everything else. That has not gone down well in Israel and has not gone down well in the White House.
In the world as well. Philip, I've got to go, but great to speak to you as always. Philip Ingram there, Senior Military Intelligence Officer. We'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's the final hour of tonight's Political Asylum. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, 7 p.m. for another rip-roaring show. Been a great show tonight. Lots of, in journalism we say great stories, because they're interesting. But my God, I mean, they're just infuriating stories, aren't they? The more of this lunacy of this government, this be kind, left-wing claptrap that is sending this country to hell in a handcart. So, been a great show, but full of stories that kind of drive you mad. Why not? Rest of the country's mad. We might as well be mad as well. And this is the political asylum. Not for nothing is it called that. Now, in about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, we're going to go over to you. The rest of the show will be open to you. Your calls, your thoughts, your texts, your messages. 0344 499 1000. Don't know if we've got any WhatsApp voice notes yet, but if we have, we'll play those out. I'll read some of your messages and we will talk. We will talk. You know what we're talking about. Well, for the time being, let's concentrate on government waste. You know, like paying £130,000 a year to some old geezer who lives in Finland to be our borders watchdog, 73 years old, sprightly young up-and-comer, that guy. That kind of waste. And the waste that Nigel Farage was talking about in that video that we showed you that he put on TikTok. Absolute millions being spent on total nonsense, you know. So, yeah, the waste. So, over in America, in Washington, you've no doubt been watching Errol. He's our next guest, actually. Elon Musk, who has been appointed head of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, has been driving a truck, a freight train, through wokery, through over-expenditure, through waste, going into department by department by department. They're in the education department at the moment. Two 22-year-olds working for Elon Musk just went in there and just like tore up £831 million worth of contracts, expenditure, because they just said this is all a waste of money. So he's really going for it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what he's doing and the fact that Elon Musk, and this is what I found very intriguing, they've gone into USAID, the equivalent of our foreign aid department. This is where they generously give money, billions of dollars every year around the world. And one of these things he said, well, apart from the fact they're spending money on ridiculous projects abroad, $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza. Joe Biden did that. He said he found it very intriguing that so many bureaucrats who worked at USAID, on $100,000 a year, had accrued somehow multi-million-dollar fortunes and lived in multi-million-dollar houses. I wonder how that happened. Well, let's remind ourselves, first, this is the 27-year-old brilliant new White House spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt, trashing the Democrats' insane expenditure. So first, Caroline.
And I would just say a strong message to Democrats who are out there pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. I could go on, and I'm happy to provide this list to every single one of you. Democrats are outraged that the American people want to be, they want their taxpayers going to good uses, not stuff like this. But then they're very quiet about the fact that there are still North Carolinians and people in California who have lost everything, and in the last 4 years, this federal government did nothing to help them. This president will continue to put Americans first, and I think the successes of this week so far speak to that, and it's only Wednesday. So I'll see you guys later this week, and we'll see you this afternoon.
God, she's good, isn't she? Yeah, crap that the Democrats were spending their money on. I mean, sex changes in Guatemala. I mean, perhaps Britain should invest in that. I think it's fantastic. What a cause. What a cause. And the $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza. You can't criticise that. That's what Biden and his maniacs were spending American tax dollars on. It's just insane. Saving money in Washington is a pretty easy process. Here's Elon Musk reflecting on that odd syndrome that he's discovered, that so many people who work for USAID seem to be mysteriously wealthy. Check this out.
We have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want, and it's not. It does not match the will of the people. So it's just something we've got to fix.
So he's with his 4-year-old son there, and the president sitting there in the Oval Office. He was dressed as Elmer Fudd there, that cartoon character who goes hunting. We'll show you a picture in a minute. So to prove my point that that's what he looks like. I used to do this newspaper column. I used to do like lookalikes every week, people who look like each other, and that would definitely be a candidate, Elon Musk. Looking like Elmer Fudd. Before we get to that very important piece of journalism, let's talk to, from the Republican Overseas Organisation over here in London, Errol Moorcoach. Hi, Errol.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Now, are you in London?
No, I told you I had this car accident.
So you're still there? Okay, so how are you doing? Seriously?
Actually, I'm doing a lot better. It was really bad, like internal bruising on one side, and they said just don't get on a plane for 60 days. That was in January.
Oh my God!
I'm planning to come at the end of the month.
Well, you're stuck in California. There's worse places to be stuck. Let's talk about this, though. I think. Well, let's talk about the education department first. You know, Elon's sending in these very young techies. Apparently, he sent a couple of 22-year-olds into the education department, and they're finding contracts left, right, and centre. I think they've literally found $821 million worth of contracts they don't think are worth spending a dime on. And the workers in the education department are up in arms. They're outside demonstrating, save our civil service. Yeah, good luck with that. That'll get the public really worked up, won't it? Yeah, save our civil service. You hear people saying that all the time. But what the Republicans are worried about, and I think we have a similar fear here, is that educators in America are left-wing, and they've basically, or they're liberal, and they've basically been teaching American kids how to be left-wing. In other words, they've been raising generations of future Democrat voters. There's a fear about that, isn't there?
Oh, there's a huge fear, and it's a fear that's a generation like mine had to grow up with. Keep in mind, J.D. Vance, being a millennial, he went to K-12 public school just like myself. And we went through this whole experience where we saw the No Child Left Behind Act, which made the whole school go at the speed of the stupidest kid in class. That was how we started to operate the systems. The system started to become a slush fund for unqualified people. My fiance is an educator. I remembered listening to the teachers union call her and basically threaten her and tell her that the students are so bad and so dangerous that if you don't join the union, they're going to sue you. I mean, it was like listening to some sort of like unelected bureaucracy, which is what they are, and they've dumbed down the American student experience to the point where we're ranked last effectively in any quantifiable metric in public education. And these people are terrified, horrified, petrified of that slush fund being exposed and seeing what the money is really going to. We're spending in some cities $22,000 per student. That's 5 times, you know, the average you spend in Europe. If that money went to teachers, each teacher could take 10 kids and make $220,000 a year. The teachers make $40,000 a year, and they're not educating the teachers in specific subjects, by the way. They've created the discipline of education. So you give a guy who has a PhD in education, who's the principal. These are not qualified, competent people, and the result is in the student output. It's not me sitting here saying I had a bad personal experience. It's saying look at the de-evolution of the American public school system and look at the money spent. The money's going somewhere. Where is it going? Well, a lot of people are getting very, very rich, whether it be consultants who go through the revolving door of the Department of Education and then sell pamphlets to distribute into schools or sell textbooks back to the schools. The entire thing lacks any oversight whatsoever, and it's basically been a jobs program for unqualified people who all vote Democrat, who all donate Democrat. And if this is to come down and school choice is to become a thing, and the American student is going to have a chance in the 21st century, this institution needs to be obliterated. It's what Donald Trump ran on. It's what people like me have been saying since we we were sitting in those classrooms saying, this is what we're getting as an education. And so I think
even the kids recognise it. Even the kids recognise it. We've got the same thing going on here, but I think it's very interesting that only this week, what they call them the Muscovites or something. That he sends in these very young techno guys and women, of course. Apparently, a couple of 22-year-olds went into the education department, and in no time at all, cancelled 89 education department contracts worth $881 million, and they axed 29 diversity, equality and inclusion training grants, adding up to $101 million. My point, Errol, here is that, I'll bet you that was very justified. Saving money from Joe Biden's government, the remnants of his government, is quite an easy task, isn't it? This guy was spending money like water on ludicrous nonsense.
Oh, absolutely. And I think here's the thing that's really genius, that Elon brought in young people who aren't beholden to any bureaucracy. He knows they're not corrupted because they were just in college. That one kid deciphered how to read those scrolls with AI technology. I mean, these kids are brilliant. So they're not encumbered by owing somebody something to get to their station. None of them owe anybody anything. So we have our top quality young minds in there discovering unlimited waste and abuse. And the DEI especially has been holding everybody back. You're taking people who aren't qualified and putting them in positions that they can't really keep. You're taking people who aren't qualified and putting them in positions where they're maybe holding others back. And you're also cheating people who do things the right way and who would work hard. Now they're getting castigated as though they only got there because of some DEI policy, which isn't fair to them. And so when you look at all the waste that can be cut out in day one, just give them another month and wait till they start to see all the fraud and abuse that goes into the union, especially, and look at the revolving door and the money that's going to the individuals. Now we're catching the broad spectrum fraud, but where's the individual slush fund going? And I think that's where these young heroes, as I call them, are going to be, saving the American taxpayer more money than anybody ever on earth. These 4 or 5 young people will save us a fortune that we could reinvest into school choice, into actual education programs, into actually renovating some of the schools that are dilapidated, as opposed to hiring a new DEI coordinator for the school. Why don't we fix the plumbing? It's leaking water on the students. That's the reality in inner city schools. 0 kids in Baltimore could pass the reading comprehension test at a 10th grade level. Not zero kids in one school, or like percentage 0.1. Zero students could read. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. Illiteracy.
It really is bad. And do you know what I think about? We're going to come back to old Elon in just a second. What I think Donald Trump is doing right now, he is striking terror into the hearts of politicians all over the world, all over the Western world, certainly here and certainly in America, because he's gone in and say, I'll tell you what we're going to do, we're going to run this country like a proper business, and no more of this political indulgence, this nonsense that Caroline Levitt we just heard talking about, $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza. No more of that. We're going to run this efficiently. And politicians, I think, in Washington especially, but around the world, are going, this is what we've always dreaded. Someone who comes in and acts with common sense. We're all going to have to do it now.
Yeah, well, it points to an interesting situation. I always say, in kind of tongue-in-cheek, that Donald Trump is the last American aristocrat, in some ways of how he carries himself, in some ways of just how he is. But when you have people who are actually, I don't want to say rich people, but people who are independently successful. Like he points to Elon, says, I want a successful guy running Doge, not an unsuccessful guy. Well, Donald Trump is also a successful guy. You know what these guys are also not able to do? You can't buy them. You can't buy them for $1 million to their charity. You can't buy them for a $50,000 campaign contribution. So these people are actually, in this case, the only uncorruptible people in the U.S. government, because they have more money than most of the people trying to bribe them. So I'm not advocating to have your country run by the wealthiest people in the world, but in a moment of, let's say, you're shining the flashlight and the cockroaches are scattering, you need somebody who the cockroaches can't pay off to turn off the light, and none of those guys are corruptible. in this situation. And I think that's what's really going to, I think, be a lesson to the world. Like, you need to elect people who are maybe not the richest guys, but the most qualified guys. And those people who have honor, who have dignity, and who aren't going to sell out their neighbor for Marriott status and free airfare and a trip to Istanbul or whatever people are doing in the U.S. government. And I think that's the big lesson. You get actually competent, successful people who aren't corruptible, and all of a sudden all the other grifters are like, oh no, we're caught because we have our hands in the cookie jar, and these guys don't even need any cookies.
Yeah,
and so I think that's what this is teaching us, and I think it's great to see.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no problem with with billionaires being given these top jobs, because these are people who are successful. They know how to be successful. So the only people who complain about that kind of appointment are people who just sort of viscerally hate rich people. We have a lot of them in this country, as you probably noticed. Last point that I think is very interesting. That Elon Musk was wearing in his weird Elmer Fudd outfit, standing next to the president with his 4-year-old kid. He's nothing if not different, old Elon. But very interesting point. They've obviously they're driving a truck right now through the education department, but they've already driven a truck through US aid. You know, the Foreign Aid Department. I believe that America was giving away more than $200 billion a year, vast amounts of money. And I don't think for a second that President Trump intends not to give any money away at all. He just might save the odd buck or two on condoms in Gaza, some of these crazy giveaways that they've been indulging in. But Elon made this point about USAID as they drove that truck through. He said, we're kind of interested that so many of these unelected bureaucrats, you know, these are the executives who run the Foreign Aid Department, you know, who the most well-paid of whom is on a few $100,000 a year. So most of them are $100,000, $200,000 a year. Nice enough money. He said, but we're kind of mystified to find how many of them seem to live in multi-million-dollar houses and have somehow accrued multi-million-dollar fortunes. That's interesting, isn't it?
It's more than interesting, especially with USAID. I mean, it's nearly $1 billion a day that they're giving out, which they can say is a drop in the bucket compared to the trillions of dollars GDP. No, that's a lot of money. And there's a lot of influence you can buy around the world for $1 billion, and a lot of maybe regime change and things you can get yourselves involved into. Then you look at the director, Samantha Powers, or whatever her last name is. She makes, like you said, a couple $100,000 a year. In the last 5 to 6 years, her net worth has ballooned to $30 million. 30 million.
Is that what they mean by USAID? Who exactly is benefiting from USAID?
aiding herself. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, these people are craven grifters, and they know that the jig is up, and you know they're trying to lock the doors and batten down the hatchets. But America has turned on them. The American people have turned on them and realized you people are we go to work, we work hard, we come home, we buy our groceries, our gas, our food, our electric, and we pay our taxes, and we turn around and you're stuffing your pockets and you're sending money to Mozambique for transsexual drag shows, and eventually people caught on that the wind it's too much now. The grift is too exposed, and all of these corrupt people have been taking kickbacks because that's what it is. These contracts are perpetual contracts. How do you get a perpetual contract? You're kicking it back, not directly, through a paymaster. It goes to a law office, and you get paid as a consultant. These people aren't stupid. That's how they move money all around. But the idea that it's not a kickback is what they're going to catch. These people have been robbing the American taxpayer blind, and finally the majority of Americans are on our side, and they want us to find that abuse, root it out. And if there's some extreme examples, such as the director of USAID who's taken so much money, perhaps in that case there should be criminal prosecution. I'm not saying for everybody, but some of these egregious situations are borderline theft of the American taxpayer dollar.
Well, we don't know the actual circumstances, but as you quite rightly say, the lady in charge of USAID and the other executives who seem to somehow or other mysteriously accrued multi-million-dollar fortunes, it should be looked into, that's for damn sure. Fascinating stuff. You know, our thanks to Donald Trump. He's putting on the greatest show on earth. We are loving it on this side of the Atlantic, not with a little amount of jealousy. Last question, Errol, when are you coming back then?
So end of the, early next month, at some point, middle of the month. The doctor said 60 days at least. Don't get on a plane. You're going to be in seatbelt. You're going to get turbulence, and it's going to hit the. It's a ton of bruising, man. Like the whole right side of my body, internally.
Well, I'm glad you're getting better. And the moment you get back, I'll buy you a pint of warm flat beer. How's that?
I appreciate it. I've been missing it.
Well, glad you have. I hate it. Good to talk to you, Errol. Take care now. Errol Moore, coach there from the Republican Overseas Organisation. And as you noted, he is overseas. The poor guy had a car crash over Christmas, I think it was, and has been stuck. I mean, it's not bad that he's stuck in America, but he lives here, so he's been trying to get back and can't. But we'll be back soon. Anyway, it's time to go to break now. And when we come back, as I said earlier, your calls, and also I'll read a few of your messages as well. And I don't know if we've got any voice notes on WhatsApp, but if we have, we'll play those out as well. So quite a lot still to come. Stay exactly where you are.
You know and I know and your viewers know, if this had been somebody from any other political party, it would have been Keir Starmer and the Labour Party who would have been leading the charge, saying they have to be shown the door.
Yeah, but it was just disdain for the voters generally. And I mean, that's the worst sort of result that Keir Starmer can have, because it led to people like me having conversations about, is this what they really think of us? Is this what they really think of you?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's read a couple of messages from Stuart. The latest Border Force appointment is the latest in a long line of Starmer's bad appointments. I can't actually think of any good appointments he's made. This is the guy he's not, we're talking about, is actually going to be our borders watchdog. Hasn't quite got the job yet, but he is the government's preferred candidate. He's going to work from home. The slight caveat being his home is in Finland. It's just doesn't bear thinking. It's just so crazy. This is from Chris Moore in Skipton. He says, how much are we spending on surveillance to watch these 16-year-old young males running from war-torn countries? Add that to what we are paying France, and I am sure we could use it to keep our OAPs warm. Oh, by the way, I identify as a migrant, job sorted. Chris is making a good point there. All this money. Don't forget, we gave £500 million to France to patrol their beaches properly, and they don't do it. Stuart says, regarding the hate preacher, he should be arrested for hate speech. Others are in jail for saying far less. Well, if he does get into this country, we don't know the decision yet. But if he does, you know, yes. If he starts spewing all this stuff about raping babies and, you know, you're not allowed to condemn Hamas and so on, yeah, arrest him. But I bet they don't. This is from John in Hampshire. Hugo Norton Taylor, a judge. Does he live in the real world with a name like that? I doubt it. We have to do something about this. This is crazy. As for that Muslim hate preacher, we should wait until he opens his mouth, then lock him up for a hate crime. Starmer style, really quick. You know, I don't like hate crimes. I don't like locking people up for them. But in the case of Hugo Norton Taylor or that hate preacher, I'll make an exception. This is from James. After listening to the extremist preachers spouting on about the teachings of Allah, it sounds to me like it's Allah who also needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror. I don't think that's fair to Allah. I think this guy, Mohammed Hoblos, is taking Allah's name in vain. Allah would not ever condone someone who raped babies. Hoblos says, well, as long as they pray, it's okay to rape babies. Allah would not go along with that. I don't think there's any doubt. If there's any Muslims out there who want to confirm what I'm saying, please do. 03444991000. This is the point, as Isabel was saying earlier, about people like Mohammed Hoblos. They lead to people going, oh, Muslims, Islam, we hate them. And that's not fair. It's not fair because, you know, nearly all Muslims are the same as the rest of us. Decent people trying to keep a roof over their heads, pay the rent, you know, feed their kids, go on holiday, all that kind of stuff. Same as the rest of us. But we have these extremists and we have these lunatics like Mohammed Hoblos who give the religion a bad name. And that's sad. That's unfortunate. Right, let's go to the phone. Let's first talk to Tony in Staffordshire. Hi, Tony.
Hello there, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. What would you like to say?
It's just this guy who's living in Finland.
Finland, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember his name.
John Hackett. I'll look it up. You carry on.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he just being given a fancy job title so they can pay him a load more money?
Well, it's an existing job that he doesn't have at the moment. I mean, who knew we had something called a borders watchdog? Yeah, I'll get the proper title of it now. Here we are, yeah. So the job is, his name is John Tuckett. He's 73, as I say. He's one for the future, bright young thing.
He must have gone on the apprenticeship scheme.
Yeah, up and coming, just a youngster. His whole life ahead of him. Anyway, he's up for the Independent Inspector of Borders and Immigration. If you know what that job entails, I don't. And he used to be something called the Immigration Services Commissioner. These are all like 130, 140, 150 £150 a year jobs. What are they? What on earth are they, do you think?
I don't know, but I'll come out to retirement for one, I think.
Yeah, I'm available. At least you and I, Tony, actually live here, which I would have thought would have been a kind of prerequisite, but apparently not. Not.
The other question I would wonder is, does he get, if he comes into the office, does he actually get travelling allowance?
Probably, knowing this government, but the main thing is he doesn't really come into the office. He wants to work at home. But he does say 60-40. He wants to do a 60-40 split. and I'm not so. For some of the time, he wants to be available for what he calls visible appointments. So I presume that'll mean physically he'll be somewhere within the vicinity of the office. Apart from that, he wants to sit at home for periods of quiet reflection and writing. And for that, Tony, you and I will pay him through the nose. Good, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. Tony, good call. Thanks very much. Call me again, Johnny. Tony in Staffordshire there. When we come back, we'll go to a break now, play a couple of voice notes, and we'll go back to the phone. So keep calling in 0344 499 1000. Let's do it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Before we go back to the phones, WhatsApp voice notes. First up, Michael on the important topic of llamas.
Kev, if Nigel Farage, or indeed me, would identify as Keir Starmer's boss, would the government honour that? Or would that be going too far? They'd probably say, no, you can identify as the opposite sex or an animal, but Keir's boss, come off it. You must be some kind of loony. It's one rule for one, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that idea, Michael. Let's all identify as Keir Starmer's boss, and I think our first corporate act as his boss should be to fire him, like right now, and maybe bring in someone who's not completely hopeless and has a semblance of common sense, because he is useless, incompetent and senseless. He is just not sensible, and nor is his party. Right, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Stephen in Cambridgeshire. Hi, Stephen.
Hello, Kev. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Preachers?
Well, it's just one rule for them, one rule for everybody else, isn't it?
Yeah. In what respect?
Well, I mean, who would even consider letting that idiot in the country?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're in a holding position at the moment. Hopefully, the Home Office and indeed the government will come to their senses and make the right decision, hopefully tomorrow, and ban him. Because in 1 week's time, his 5-city tour of the country, going from London, I think, to Birmingham, Glasgow, Manchester, you know, he's going to do it night by night. So it starts on the 19th, finishes on the 23rd. It's still on. And apparently he sold a lot of tickets. He's been able to hire these venues. I don't know how someone like him manages to do that. But I want to see them, Stephen. I want to see him do this. I want to see them ban him like every other country in Europe. All 29 countries. You know, loads of them lefty countries have banned this guy. I want to see our government ban him and make a statement about it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, imagine if it was the extreme right wing.
Oh yeah, no, they'd be banned already.
Ah, well, exactly, and that's my point.
That's what you mean. One rule for absolutely. There is a two-tier. Can I use this phrase? A two-tier approach when it comes to Muslims. There's no doubt about it. They get a different deal from the police. They get a different deal from the government. They get a different deal culturally. Everything is different for them, and that's two-tier. A two-tier approach to that community. And you're right. If this lunatic on his way to Britain for a 5-city tour was some kind of right-wing white supremacist, trust me, he'd have been banned weeks ago. Yet our friend Mohammed Hoblos, as things stand, can still come here. Yeah, well, the other thing I was going to say regarding the Palestinian refugees, I'm all in fact, let them come here, providing one proviso. Yeah. They remove all police and armed protection from every minister and government representative in the country. Yeah, that might put the cat among the pigeons. Very good point.
Let them live. Let them live how we live. Yeah. We have to live among it. Let them live among it.
I mean, I just hope, again, in this swirling mass of madness we find ourselves in, that some common sense prevails there and somebody says, no, we can't let 2 million Palestinians into Britain. It doesn't bear thinking about. Stephen, very good call. Thank you very much. Please call me again. Let's play one more WhatsApp, shall we? This is Chris on the Finland-based borders watchdog, John Tuckett.
Evening, Kevin. Mate, John Tuckett has been doing that job since 2019, and he's been doing it all from home. He has now been promoted with a pay rise, and now you're talking about the split of 60-40. I mean, because he's been doing such a great job for the last 5 years. And he's got a promotion because our borders are all secure, aren't they?
I'm not sure what the Borders Watchdog does. He had a slightly different job. He's been something called the Immigration Services Commissioner. Again, no, me neither. I have no idea what that means, but that's what his job has been. And he's the guy, he's very proud that he closed the office. So it became fully remote, which some cynics might say enabled him to not bother going to work. So now he seems to be switching potentially to become the Independent Inspector of Borders and Immigration. So for that, he'll get 130 grand a year. And I hope he doesn't get free plane tickets to and from Finland, but he will be working in Finland. The madness of that, folks, is off the scale. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Carol in Coventry. Hello, Carol.
Hello there. I'm 88. I've just had my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, dear. I would love to be able to afford to go to Dignitas, but seeing as the government's taken my winter fuel payments off me and left me a bit cash-strapped, I really don't know how to run away now.
Well,
it's total madness, darling. It really is. And if it's for preference, I don't want to be a llama or gain any further anatomical equipment. You know, at 88, you don't need it. So please, can I go now?
No, Carol, we need people like you to stick around. We really do, because you sound like a common sense lady and you've lived a long time. Have you ever seen a government like this? Have you ever seen such a swirling mass of insanity, of mad decisions, mad appointments?
Of course not. Of course we haven't. When I was growing up, I was a toddler during the war. My father was away fighting, you know, and all we had was the Germans and the Luftwaffe. You know, Our parents looked after us. We went happily to school, dodging the bombs. The house got bombed. There was nothing complicated like this.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
And when you were a kid, Carol, did you ever consider identifying as an animal?
My God, it's not likely.
What do you see? What do you think, though, Carol? Look. You know, I'm not quite as advanced in age as you, but you know, I've seen a few years myself, and I look at some of this stuff, and you know, I think, what has happened to this country? What is going wrong? You know, why are we indulging kids, little kids who are running around or crawling around on all fours and saying they're animals? And we've got the Children's Society said take them seriously.
People guiding them, isn't there? I have, though, told my son that I'm willing to provide a large balloon to anyone that can find the Prime Minister, because he never seems to be in the country, does he?
I know. Have you noticed, by the way, do you know how much he's spent, by the way, in his first 3 months? So this is dating back a bit. First 3 months would only take it to about September, wouldn't it? He spent over £700,000 on flights around the world. Now think about this, and he's been abroad for something like 50 days or something. Think about Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been the president now for around about a month, hasn't even remotely left the country. This weird propensity that our Prime Minister has for hopping on a plane and going elsewhere is a bit worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, I would like, you know, as much as he pays on hair gel to live on, that would be nice.
Are you okay?
I don't believe these people. I mean, I get up in the morning and I hear the most extraordinary things on the radio, and that sets me off for the day. I've been rather ill, which is not of any employment. But believe me, if the Grim Reaper turns up with his scythe, I will welcome him as long as he cuts the garden first.
Well, look, Carol, as I say, we need people like you, so don't you go anywhere. You stick around, and please call me again. I loved that. Really good chat from someone who knows what she's talking about, a woman of experience. Carol in Coventry, excellent call. We'll go to break now. When we come back, another WhatsApp message and a few more calls. Stick around.
So the answer is that people just work more efficiently for the 5 days, surely.
But why is it 5 days?
Well, because we kind of need to have some kind of production level. I mean, people have.
But it was 7.
People have coped pretty well with that for the last, more than probably a century, haven't they?
You could say people coped with it being 7 for.
Well, they didn't. I mean, they didn't. They didn't, did they?
I mean, people aren't coping with it being 5 now.
Well, they are. Who isn't coping? I mean, only snowflakes are coping with that, for goodness sake.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We've been talking about this immigration judge who made this bovine decision to basically open the floodgates and allow all Palestinians to settle in Britain. Now, his name is Hugo Norton-Taylor. Perhaps you won't be stunned to learn that Hugo is the son of a former Guardian journalist who campaigns against Israel online. Hugo's father, Richard Norton-Taylor, spent years writing for The Guardian on security and defence, and now regularly tweets about the Israel-Hamas conflict, often attacking Israel. He's 80 years old, and last March he called on Haringey Council in North London to stop supporting genocide in Palestine. He later urged his followers on Twitter, to write to their MPs demanding that the government recognise Palestine without negotiations. In December, he reposted a video of a huge banner covering Parliament Square by that hilarious, useless organisation led by donkeys, the campaign group, which said, yes, it's genocide. That is Richard Norton-Taylor, the 80-year-old father of Hugo Norton-Taylor, the immigration judge who just decided that all Gazans, all Palestinians can come and live in this country. Now, in fairness, you can't necessarily visit the sins of the father on the son, but I think that what I just read out is food for thought. Don't you? 03444991000. Let's play another WhatsApp voice note. This one's from Anna. She wants to talk about those Birmingham councillors who's just given themselves a pay rise.
Kev, my parents live in Birmingham. My dad's 86, my mum's 82. They've worked like dogs all their life. They receive no help. Well, they took the heating allowance off them. They still pay tax. Why should my elderly parents, who've paid more than enough in, pay for a rise for these absolute scumbags? I give me one good reason, Kev, and I'll pay them the pay rise themselves.
Anna, with you all the way. I mean, it's just disgusting. It's just disgusting. The people of Birmingham are suffering, because of the mismanagement of that council by the Labour councillor. While they suffer, while they have to face all these services being cut and rocketing council tax, 17.5% hike on their council tax, the local councillors, in a half an hour, quick, perfunctory debate, vote themselves a 5.7% pay rise. It's disgusting. Disgusting. Right, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Annette in Middlesbrough. Hello, Annette.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm very, very well.
Good, good. Can I just say I'm a fan of your show and a few of the guys that are on your show.
Oh, thank you, and it's good to have people like you tuning in, Annette. It really is. So you'd like to call about these preachers, yes?
Yes, I would. I have a background in security and risk management.
Oh, okay.
So what I would be saying is, I'm 53-year-old now.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's nothing to do with the story. I would let them do their 5 shows. I would have Protect do a road show and follow them all around and monitor and camera and film everyone that you're getting out of the bedrooms and out of their houses where they're all hiding, because, as we've already said, this isn't our regular Muslim people.
No, it's not. He's not representative of Muslims.
Yeah,
He
so
really isn't.
let them do the roadshow, and let's see all the extremists go to the roadshows, and let's watch all of those people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thought, but I think it's an interesting thought, and we don't want to advocate violence in any way. But I think on balance, I think you would agree with me, Annette, that the best policy would be to keep this guy out of the country, don't you think?
And where does that put us with freedom of speech?
You got me there. I'm a bit of an absolutist on freedom of speech, but I think that people like Mohammed what was his name, Hoblos, they make my absolutist point or viewpoint on freedom of speech difficult. I can't support what he says, and it's whipping up hate, it's whipping up violence, and we cannot have violence. We cannot have these kind of people in the country. So if he wants to do his hate speech, his hate preaching, don't do it in Britain. As simple as that. Annette, thank you very much for an excellent call. Thank you. Call me again. Now let's go to Peter in North Telford, who's got an interesting story about his grandson. Peter, tell us all about it. What happened?
Well, I do indeed. This whole gender nonsense. If somebody had told me 20 years ago that this was going to happen, I'd have thought they were in Gaga land.
Well, yeah, you and me both, all of us. I mean, a kind of insanity has descended on this country, and indeed the Western world. Some of this wokery, he identifies as a llama. He is a llama. No, he just says he is. That doesn't make him a llama. Oh, there's a bloke in a dress, says he's a woman. He is a woman. No, he's not. He's a bloke in a dress. We are now being required, Peter, to deny the truth, and it won't do. It just won't do. Tell us about your grandson. What happened?
Well, I will, but before I do, may I just tell you that you may remember there was a little girl in a primary school who said she identified as a cat.
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of those. There was one identified as a mushroom.
Well, when it comes to lunchtime, put their food on the floor.
Well, I think some of them do. That's the point. But some parents, some adults, that's what they do. They act like animals. They go around on all fours and they like to eat their dinner on the floor. That's what happens. This is how they're being indulged. And as I said earlier, I think it adds up. It amounts to child abuse. Don't indulge them with this insanity. Tell us about your grandson then, Peter.
Well, okay. He got into an argument with his biology teacher. Because his biology teacher basically said, some people say there are 142 genders.
Did he frame it like that? He said, some people say.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And your grandson, I'm guessing, said, no, there aren't?
No. But the biology teacher continued to say that is not true.
Oh, the biology teacher said that's not true?
Yeah, he said there are actually 42.
He said there are 42? He's a biology teacher. No, there aren't. There are 2. Anyway, so what happened to his grandson?
He argued. He said, how can you say that? There's male and female.
Yeah.
And he got threatened with detention, but I think that was more, he's 13, he's aggressive in some ways, and it was probably more to do with the way he expressed his...
But I think what's frightening about this story, you've got a biology teacher you know, supposed to be an expert in biology, saying there are 42 genders. No, there aren't. There are 2. There are 2. It's as simple as that, you know. And when you have alleged experts in the area, in the you know, who are educating, who are teaching kids, teaching them this claptrap about 42 genders, it's terrifying. You know, this is not true. They're being taught untruths by woke idiots. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
But the woker is, I mean, look, Donald Trump, one of the first things he said, there are only 2 genders.
Well, yeah, he's right. Yeah, as I just said. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And we got, you know, the latest.
Well, you don't need Donald Trump to say.
Minister into the health department.
I mean, I'm all for Donald Trump, but we don't need Donald Trump to tell us that. We knew that already. Anybody with any common sense, you know. So this is schools telling kids there are 42 genders. It's got to stop. It's got to stop because it's not true. It's just not true. And if you have teachers teaching kids scientific claptrap, you know, untruths, what is the point? What is the point of filling kids' heads with lies? It's terrifying. Peter, I've got to go, but thank you very much for a good call. Peter in North Telford there. And I think I could see Petri Hoskin, she's coming in. But first, let's quickly talk to John in London. Hello, John.
Hi. First of all, I want to congratulate Mr. Trump for giving me back my plastic straw.
Yeah. A lot of people like that. But he said, they don't work. Paper towels, they don't work.
If you have 1 second, get the hole in it. It's in the paper straw. It's not meant for that. But I wonder if a Elon Musk type would come and check out the UK government.
Well, that's what we've been talking about, John. I mean, if only. If only. You never know, though. Nigel Farage is going to do his own audit of some of our ridiculous expenditure, as I played earlier on the show. John, listen, I've got to cut you short, but please call me again. We'll have a proper chat, but the show's nearly over. John in London there. Petri Hoskin is in the studio. Hi, Petri.
Hello. Right, so coming up straight away, I'm going to be talking to Sean Bell, who's a military analyst and a former fighter, but he's a good guy, yeah. Talking to him about the latest